Associate Professor of National Security and Strategic Studies at Curtin University. Thank you so much for being with us on the program, Professor. Let me get your thoughts on this incident. What do you think could be behind it?
Well, I mean, I can only think of one possibility that perhaps it's an act of sabotage more terrorist by the Ukrainian security services, who have been quite effective in taking out some key figures ranging from journalists to those who engaged in state propaganda, targeting collaborators and targeting senior Russian military. So, given the status of General Kirillov, given that he was heavily involved in combat in Ukraine, his forces are responsible for using thermobaric munitions. He was often given press conferences concerning the alleged use of chemical weapons by the Ukrainians, and you just reported the Ukrainians also accused him of authorizing the deployment of chemical weapons. He was behind investigations into clandestine chemical, biological, and radiological laboratories that were stationed in Ukraine. So the Ukrainians had many reasons to neutralize him, and because they obviously see him as a threat.
Right, and we are seeing live pictures from Moscow of the scene of the explosion that led to the killing of General Kirillov. I mean, he was clearly someone who caught the attention of the West, given his position. How important of a figure is he for the Kremlin, though?
Well, he was until now in charge of one of the branches of the Russian armed forces. He made his name soon after he was appointed as chief of Russia's chemical, biological, radiological warfare defense troops in April 2017 for two reasons. First of all, he was instrumental in Russia's preparations to counter COVID threat, and certainly the Russian military played an important role in providing the country with much needed medical assistance. The Russians also deployed their forces abroad as part of assistance. If you recall, some elements of the Russian military were deployed to Italy, to Serbia, and they were all under Kirillov's command. He was also the one who was engaged in developing Russia's counter narrative concerning alleged poisoning, the use of Novichok combat agent in the UK against Alexey Navalny. He was also developing Russia's narrative about the so-called white helmets in Syria, and he was trying to defend the regime of Bashar al-Assad and its use of chemical weapons. So Kirillov had a very long history. As a result, he was instrumental in not only in the context of Russia's executive defense setting, but also instrumental in terms of Russian politics and Russia's policies, as well as formulation of Russia's agendas, not only at home, but more importantly abroad.
There's been no progress, Alexey, in terms of, getting the two sides, being Ukraine and Russia, to the negotiating table for some peace in the region. Will this incident add fuel to the fire and further escalate tensions?
Well, I think that's another reason why we've probably seen this particular targeted assassination. It happened less than a day after Russia's President Vladimir Putin met with top military brass, which he did yesterday, and Kirillov was present at that meeting. It also happens around the time when the incoming Trump administration discusses possibilities of armistice, possibilities of suspension of fighting. There was a proposal presented by Hungarian Premier Orban about Christmas ceasefire and the exchange of prisoners, which was rejected by the Ukrainian side. So to me, it's certainly a way to once again climb the escalation ladder, escalate, get the Russians to get back at the Ukrainians' heart, which would provide Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky with effectively yet another justification of why he would plead to Trump not to suspend military aid to Ukraine, not to cut military supplies to the levels when the Ukrainians won't be able to defend themselves. So it would very much depend on how Putin would react to it, on how the Kremlin would react to that, on how Russia's Ministry of Defense would react to that, whether it's going to be yet another large-scale missile drone attack on Ukraine, whether it would result in symmetric targeting killing, or it would result in some sort of alternative action, or if Putin will decide not to do anything and use it as a bargaining chip in his incoming negotiations with Donald Trump.
Okay, Professor Alexey Muraviev, it's always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.